Good morning. My name's Mike Felty here with Felty Insurance. And first thing I want to do is apologize for it being so long. My last video, I said I was going to start a series of videos, and I wasn't thinking about it being Christmas and the New Year and just a lot going on. And I'm still not really ready. But I thought I'd go ahead and do one here today. I've got some new software ordered that will help me with these, maybe make them a little easier to do where I can throw some stuff up on the screen. But anyway, my last video, well, first of all, I want to tell you a little bit about us and about me. I own the agency here. We're Felty Insurance Agency in the awesome little town of Bristol, Virginia. We're a small independent agent. Well, we're not really small, but we're an independent agency. And we're licensed to write business in Tennessee and Virginia, North Carolina. And one thing that's really big to me, we are not insurance agents. We're not insurance salesmen. We are insurance advisors, and there is a big difference. And I'll talk more about that later, but everything that we do, you'll notice every video that we do is going to be, we're insurance advisors. Like I said, we're not salesmen. We're not just trying to sell you something. And that's the approach we take with every client that comes in here. Our job is to make sure you understand all of your risk and your needs, and then sit down and try to put something together that you can afford, but to make sure that you and your family are protected the way they need to be. So the last video, I said I was going to give a little teaser, and I asked you something. It's been a while since I've done it, but I know what I ask because I ask every client that comes in looking for an auto quote. The first question I ask people always is, what are your current liability limits? And I told you I would tell you what the number one answer is, and there's a good chance, unless you're in the business or, just really smart in insurance, that this is probably what your answer was. The number one answer I get when I ask people that, they'll say, oh, I have full coverage. I'm like, no, that ain't what I was asking. What's your liability limits? Then sometimes I'll get, well, I've got, I think $500 deductibles, or people really don't know and understand. And I'm going to tell you, and this is just an opinion, and this is for personal lines. This has nothing to do with commercial insurance. We'll get into some commercial stuff later on in these videos. But outside of life insurance, I think your liability limits on your auto policy is probably the most important coverages that you have, period. And I'm going to kind of explain why. I get really aggravated when I see people come in that's got state minimum liability limits for whatever reason, usually because they've went online or called a carrier that is not in their area, one of the, your non-standards that all they want to do is sell you something. They don't care what you've got. But your liability limits, the reason they're so important, if you're watching this video, it depends on the audience. You may be somebody that's in your early 20s. You may not have acquired a lot of things right now. You may be somebody that's old like me and have been fortunate enough to build equity in your home. You may have some money in the bank. You may have a good portfolio, some investments, property that you own that's paid for. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to show you something here. This is a little declaration page that I pulled up here to kind of show you what I'm looking at first. So I'm going to do that here first. Well, the first thing you're going to notice, I've blacked out a few things, and that is because I'm not here to promote any certain carriers. This is a declaration page from my agency. It's actually my personal auto policy declaration page, but you notice I've highlighted some numbers, and I've wrote some stuff over on the right. It's the same numbers. So if you look at this, and this actually, I should have got the first page. If you look above the highlighted, it says uninsured and underinsured motorist limits, or motorist. So my uninsured limits are the exact same as my liability limits, and I'm going to explain what those mean. So that first number that's on there, and I've got wrote to the right, that says $250,000 per person. So this is the reason I say auto liability limits is probably your most important coverage, and that's because you stand a greater risk of getting involved in an auto accident than anything else. I'm not saying somebody couldn't get hurt at your home and sue you or anything else, but statistically, you're way more apt to get involved in a lawsuit for an automobile accident than anything else as far as your insurance goes. So that first number there, that 250,000 per person. So if you're involved in an accident and there's one person in another vehicle, they get hurt. You go to court, they prove that you were negligent, it was your fault, and they sue. You have got to have enough coverage right there to protect your assets. You do not want to be standing in court and have a home that it's a $500,000 home that's paid for and money's in the bank and retirements and a big portfolio, and you sitting there with just $250,000 worth of protection. You could be made an example of. Like I said, you have got to make sure you have enough liability coverage to protect all of your assets. And I'll get into umbrellas later, but obviously I do have an umbrella policy, and this is the limit you're required to carry to have an umbrella, and I'm not going to get into umbrella discussion just yet. But that $250,000 per person, so pull your policy out. And if you're someone that's in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, and you've got quite a bit of equity in a home, anything that could be forced to be liquid, you got to make sure if you're riding around with $50,000 of liability coverage, or $30,000, or $100,000, or even $250,000, and you don't have an umbrella or no other coverages, and you've got way more than that in assets, that could be the largest financial mistake you ever make. But to continue with these limits, that $250,000 is per person. So the next line, $500,000 per accident, or per occurrence, it may say on some policies. That means, let's say there was 2 or 3 or 4 people in the vehicle and they all got hurt. They sue. I've got enough coverage here to protect me up to $250,000 per each person, but it stops at $500,000, no matter how many's in the vehicle. So you can do the math and see how you could get yourself in a lot of trouble really quick there. The last thing here you'll see is $200,000 property damage. That can be just as important as the bodily injury coverage. Reason I say that is, and I see people come in all the time with like $25,000 or $50,000 of property damage coverage. Start looking at prices of vehicles. I mean, we're in a world today that probably the average cost of a new vehicle on average is probably $45,000 to $50,000, maybe more than that average now. But we insure vehicles every day that's $85,000, $90,000, $110,000, $115,000. So your property damage coverage on your policy is coverage that pays for anything you tear up that's not yours. So if you drove through someone's home, you totaled a brand new F-450 diesel truck that was a week old, that was $120,000 or $30,000, or you totaled 2 or 3 vehicles, that's how much your policy is going to pay. Nothing more. So, you got $50,000 worth of property damage and you total a $100,000 vehicle, you're in trouble. And the reality is, as you get a little older, and once you get out, in your mid to late 20s, and then even more so when you get in your 30s and 40s and 50s, the liability coverage and property damage coverage is the cheapest part of your policy to increase. So if you're one that's sitting there and you're looking at your policy right now going, oh my gosh, it might be time to start looking elsewhere. I don't know that you've got a actual advisor. You may just have somebody that sold you something and that's it. So those are really, really important, and we're going to get into a lot of stuff. It's probably going to be after the first of the year before I come back and do another video. So like I said, I do have some software ordered that will make this a little easier for me, make it easier for me to throw stuff up on the screen where I can show you what I'm talking about. So just be patient with us. It'll probably be a little after the first of the year before I do another video. I just decided to do this morning because it had been so long. Didn't want you to think I just bailed out. Sit down and look at your policy today. If you're looking at these liability limits right now and you've got really low limits or you're not covered properly, it may be time to do some looking around or try to find someone that'll take care of you. And there's a lot of good insurance advisors out there. But unfortunately, just like anything else, there's a lot of people, all they want to do is sell you something. I get asked all the time, what do I think about going online and getting your insurance? Well, if you're an insurance advisor and you want to do your own online and you know exactly what you're doing, exactly what you need, that's fine. But there's some things, and I'll get into that more later on, but there's some things I think it's fine to do online. Some things is a little more important. And, insurance is really simple. Everything I talked about here this morning is simple, but if you don't do it every day, you're going to forget the things I've told you here today. It might ding a bell in your head and you're like, oh my gosh. But a year from now, you may not actually remember what those things are unless you do it every day. So you got to have an insurance advisor that is always watching out for you and doing, and taking care of you. You don't need to worry about that. You should be able to go home, drive your vehicle, do whatever you do every day and not have to worry if something catastrophic happens, if you're going to have the right type of coverage. And if anyone want to reach out to us, like I said, we're licensed in Tennessee, Virginia, North Carolina. We don't do any coastal exposure in North Carolina, but we do quite a bit. We're not too far from North Carolina line here, and I'm right on the Tennessee-Virginia line. But I've got 4 other advisors here besides myself, Gavin Felty, Amanda McKinney, David Leland, and Dylan Felty. And someone wants to call, just do a good review. If you've got questions about anything I'm talking about on here, it is a very busy time of the year for us. If you just post them online, if you're one of our clients, absolutely you call us. If you're not, especially if you're out in another state or something, if you don't care, just post your questions on here and I'll try to get to them as quick as I can. I'm not the smartest person in the world by no means. I just try to use a little bit of common sense. And in today's society, that goes a long way actually. But anyway, I'll get some more videos going. It may be a couple of weeks, but once I get my software going, know how to use it, we'll try to get these things going at least one a week, maybe more. I've got a lot of topics to go over, but this kind of sets the stage for what type of stuff you're going to be seeing. And there's a lot of moving parts. Even though they're simple, there's a lot of parts to insurance policies. Your auto, your personal home, rental properties. We'll get into commercial auto, commercial policies at some point in time. And probably the most important thing of all, life insurance. We'll get into a lot of stuff on that. But anyway, I hope everybody has a happy new year, a safe new year, and hopefully 2026 is going to be a great year for everyone. I will see you next year.